I'm Joanna Doven. This is On Crisis, bringing together PR experts, thought leaders, creatives, and CEOs here to start conversations and connect people with real-life stories in crisis communications. I'm excited for you to listen to today's episode of On Crisis with Chris Togneri, the City of Pittsburgh's Public Information Officer. Chris is in charge of all communications from public safety departments within the city, including police. And he's actually built his own newsroom housed in the city to more effectively communicate with the media and public. This was a result of him realizing when he switched from a 20-plus year career in journalism to working on the inside of city government, to realizing that it really wasn't that easy to work with the media, that sometimes they didn't have time to report on stories, get them right, or really tell the full story. So he created his own newsroom, has tens of thousands of followers on social media. What's so interesting about this episode is his insider perspective of what he thought city government was like and what he thought the police were like when he was a reporter, and then how that changed when he actually got to see it for himself, be on the inside and not on the outside. We talk about what newsrooms used to be like back in the day and how newsrooms have changed today, and that when we look at reporting and we're seeing a bifurcation in the media of far left reporting versus far right reporting, and we're wondering where the heck is that middle, we really can't always blame reporters for that. We have to look at the actual news organizations themselves. We talk about why the world needs more good editors like Sandy Tolliver. I think we're going to create a meme out of that one. But the world needs more Sandy Tollivers. We talk about that because Chris harkens to the day when he had editors who challenged him to get both sides of the story and to take time to develop sources so that you really could get the story. That's not happening today, at least as much. And we talk about how we can possibly change that. Listen in. I'm so excited to have Chris Togneri here with us today on Crisis. Chris and I go way back. He was a reporter with the Tribune Review when I was the press secretary for the mayor. So we worked together a bit. I have to say that in working with many reporters, Chris was known in the industry as being one of the most reputable, fair, honest, and really liked to tell the story. So the city of Pittsburgh is very lucky to have him as their public information officer, where he's in charge of all public information for police, fire, EMS, BBI, what else? Animal control?
Animal care and control, emergency management, anything public safety.
So you're working for a big city mayor right now in one of the most tumultuous times when it comes to, police, citizen relations, public safety in general. The job must be a lot.
It is a lot. And just to clarify, I actually work for the public safety director, not directly for the mayor. So my boss is Wendell Hissrich, the public safety director, and his boss is the mayor.
Got it. Understood. Thanks for the clarification. So, the reason why I wanted to have you on today is, you and I talk by phone every once in a while, and you know what I do in my profession and working with clients and managing crisis communications, and you know how the media has changed over the past several years. Notwithstanding that just this past year with coronavirus, I think overall in the media landscape, I think it's been a 25% reduction in media in general. We've seen that locally as well. With the Post-Gazette, for example, there was a recent round of layoffs there, which is our longest standing paper. Let's just dive right into some strategies that you created and are utilizing as the PIO. How are you challenged in getting information out there to people right now, given there's less reporters to cover things?
Yeah, it's sort of, we've been forced to kind of change the philosophy around here. It used to be, and certainly when you were in the mayor's office. It used to be that when you needed to get information out, you needed the media to amplify that message.
Mhm.
That's no longer the case for a couple of reasons. One, because of the cutbacks in newsrooms, the influence of the media is not as great as it was. They're not reaching as many people. But also with social media, we often don't need to use the media to get messages out. We can do it ourselves. The PIO office here, we try to operate as an independent newsroom, and it's taken some time. When I came here, there was really no social media strategy. We had a very limited footprint in social media. I believe I did the numbers fairly recently. When I started, which would have been in the spring of 2018, we had on all of our social media channels, we had about 10,000 followers. So we could reach an audience of about 10,000 people.
So does that include like the mayor's office?
No.
Or you're just
Public
talking
safety.
about public safety bureaus. Got it. Okay.
Correct. In the almost 3 years since, we've increased that exponentially. We can now reach hundreds of thousands of people. Our main social media platform where we release breaking news is public safety Twitter. When I took over, we had 3,000 followers. We're up to 30,000 followers. So, we still need to be way higher than 30,000.
I mean, do you? I think that's still really good. I mean, it's a niche audience that's going to really follow that, right?
Sure, but I mean that has become the place where when there's breaking news and we need to get it out, people know to go to
So for example, like if there was standing water or flood on a particular boulevard, you would, and let's say I take that route home. If I'm following your Twitter feed, it's coming to me fast. But what about things like, text message alerts, those kinds of things for major issues?
We don't, at this point, we don't have that ability. We use the Twitter account though for example, protests. When a protest becomes mobile, we use Twitter to let people know this is where they are. This is what intersections have been locked down. So that way, if you're a motorist and you want to avoid it, you know exactly how to avoid it. For Tree of Life, that was active shooter situations. We use the Twitter account to tell people this is the situation that's happening right now. Avoid the area. When more information is available, we will get it out. So backtracking a little bit. So the Twitter account is what we use for breaking news. And then we use other channels, Facebook pages, Instagram to do the storytelling. Getting back to media, we can't get local media to tell the whole story.
Okay, let me pause you. So how new of a phenomenon would you say that is? Was that the case when you started in 2018 too?
Yeah, yes, it was. And it took me a while to come around to that way of thinking.
Yeah, you're on the other side now, so right.
When I was a reporter, I had the benefit of some amazing editors. I'm
Oliver, one of them.
That's exactly the person I was going to mention. Sandy Tolliver was a reporter's dream, and she was my editor for as long as I was there with her. And she was the type of reporter who understood you can't just, you need to put in the time. You need the time to develop sources, to develop beat. And I go back to the Jordan Brown murder case up in Newcastle. Jordan Brown was an 11-year-old who was accused of fatally shooting his father's pregnant fiance.
What year was that?
Well, I want to say it was 2009, maybe 2008. I moved to Pittsburgh in 2007, but it was pretty soon after I got here. We knew that was going to be a major story for a number of reasons. One, in Pennsylvania, there were laws on the books at the time where if you are charged with murder, you are automatically charged as an adult. And in Pennsylvania, if you are convicted of murder, you automatically receive life in prison. So this 11-year-old was possibly going to be the youngest person in U.S. history sentenced to life in prison without parole. And early on, Sandy took me aside and said, this is your story. You need to be up there. So there were at least one day a week for years. I was up in Newcastle because Sandy understood you don't go up there to get a story every time. You go up there to develop sources and develop the beat and get people to talk to you so that when the breaking news happens, you have people who are going to talk to you. And that doesn't happen anymore.
No,
Developing
the
beats,
relationship building, it doesn't.
It absolutely does not. And I'm not necessarily blaming reporters. I think it's our fault as news consumers because we're not supporting local news enough. So newsrooms have to cut back, and they're asked to do more with less, which is the stupidest phrase that anyone could ever utter. You can't do more with less. You do less with less.
This is all what we're realizing in 2020, 2021 is the unintended consequences of social media.
Mm-hmm.
Social media has really, I'm going to say it's in many ways destroyed the news industry. And we're all having to sort of pivot as a PR firm. We have a harder time placing the full story for clients. We pivoted about 2 years ago to doing a lot more than just earned media placement. Crisis communications, and the news will always flow to a crisis, and there's always going to be news to manage there. That's different. But still, the amount of time reporters have to give to any one story has been truncated. It's very rare where we're able to get clients the coverage sometimes they deserve, and it's really I think it's because of social media. So to your point, okay, we're going to be our news station. We're going to be our own news station. Has that alienated any local media from and impacted any relationships that you've had with them because they maybe think, well, what does he think he's doing? Why isn't he giving this to me first? Why is he breaking it on his Twitter feed and not with my news organization? Have you faced that?
No. Again, the reason that we have become our own newsroom is because we can't pitch all the stories that we want done. So we just have to tell them our own. If someone were to say, and a lot of times people will see the stories that we put out and say, hey, that's interesting. Can we do something on that? And we say, of course. But it's also, I need to clarify that we're not taking away the information that we give to the public. That has not changed at all. It's just the stories that the news outlets are not going to cover, the positive stories, because that is part of the whole. If you read the local coverage of public safety, you would think that it is only bad. Only bad things happen, and that's obviously not the case. But local media is not able or willing to cover the good stuff as well, so we do it. And that's how we've approached it. In terms of getting news out to the media, though, we created, shortly after I started, I created the public safety blotter, which is basically anytime anything happens, we put it on the blotter. If there's a shooting, if there's a flooding, car fire, 3-alarm fire or greater, anything that we as PIOs respond to, or if we hear about it, we just put it on the blotter so everyone has it. And it's a more efficient way. It used to be we would show up at an incident, we would talk to the media, and then we would respond to individual inquiries by email and phone. Now we put it out on the blotter. All of the media has it at once. We put out photos when we can, and it's a much more efficient. We get more information out now than we ever have in the history of the PIO office. There's more information going out now than ever before. And the blotter is a big part of it. It doesn't require immediate inquiry. If we hear about something, we put it out. And then we'll get inquiries and say, hey, we're wondering, we heard this on the scanner. We can immediately say, it's on the blotter. Go check it out in the blotter. It's all the information that we can release is there.
Wow, that's really cool. Are there any sensitivities from, commanders about certain things that should not be put out as They could compromise their investigation or compromise public safety.
Yes, certainly. And so the blotter, again, is a way to get out as much information as we can, as soon as we can, which means that the information is going to be limited because we can't jeopardize investigations. But we do put out as much as we can. And it's a learning curve. When I started, one of the first things that I wanted to change was saying which hospital people were brought to. It used to infuriate me as a reporter. I would be, there's a shooting and they say they were taken to a hospital. I say, which hospital? We're not going to tell you. And I just thought, why not? Why wouldn't they tell us? So I recall early on, I wanted to make that change. And I went to the major crimes commander and I said, I'm going to start saying, give me a reason why we shouldn't tell people what hospital. And his response was, if we have a victim of a violent crime, that means that somebody tried to kill this person. Why are we going to tell that person who didn't succeed where they are? And that made sense to me. So now, when we have a victim of a violent crime, we don't say the hospital. If it's a car crash and there's no crime, then we will say the hospital. So, and so there is information that we can't release. But the key is explaining to reporters why. And that's what I do. There was a SWAT call in Troy Hill a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to a reporter, and she said, what hospital did this victim go to? And I said, we can't. And I explained, and the reporter was like, okay, now that I understand why, it makes perfect sense. I'll share it with everyone else in the newsroom. And that's how I try to operate, is to, if we can't release information, I explain why. We're not going to just say, no, we're not telling you that.
Right. And in my experience, I mean, I'll just say it, you have some reporters who are on crime beats or investigative beats that will be unreasonable. They just will be. It's a very small percentage, and they'll if you tell them why, they don't care because they just want the information. But most reporters, they respect that. They want to understand, and the fact that you're in the seat, the PIO seat, and you're curious. Like, it seems as if you took the job with the same curiosity. You approach the job with the same curiosity as you do with any news story, and you wanted to figure things out, figure out the puzzle, tell the story, and that's leading to your success.
I had never wanted to be anything except a journalist. And I never had any ambitions to be a PIO or to be anything except really a print reporter. And the only reason that I tried this was I was freelancing for a while in Pittsburgh, and I had an interview with the mayor. And after the interview, he mentioned that my predecessor was leaving. They were going to need a replacement, and that in a previous life before I moved to Pittsburgh, I covered crime for a number of years in California, and he knew that. And so he suggested that I apply. And I remember I left and I thought, there's not a chance. There's no way that I would do this. But the more that I thought about it, I kind of looked at it as an opportunity. For years I was standing outside of the building trying to figure out what was going on inside. And this was my chance to go in and figure it all out. This was my chance to see everything.
Yes.
And so I decided I would try it for a while. And, here we are 3 years later. And
3 years. I'll tell you what. Here's what I tell all press secretaries, and you kind of fall under that in a way, because it's similar, right? Here's what I say. I say, after 2.5 years on the job, you can't learn anything else.
Oh, I can learn a lot more.
No. Meaning like you've absorbed, and you're just giving, and you're putting out, and be careful for that burnout. It might sit soon. I burned out probably 3 years into the job as press secretary. Now look, it's not apples and apples, because when I was doing this job, there were 11 beat reporters, right? Mm-hmm. Up my butt constantly. We actually adopted social media. So when I was press secretary, we adopted social media. It was 2009. So the city of Pittsburgh had social media, and I was really pushing to expand how we used it. And I remember the only other city that was using social to, like, in a PIO kind of way, like you're doing, was, I think it was Boston. And it ended up being a whole legal thing. Like, this city solicitor had to review it. Okay, well, how, if we're going to be posting, what's the policy for taking down comments? So we had to make a whole policy. And so we did launch social channels, but it wasn't used like you're using it now. It was really more about getting like positive information out there. Like, okay, we're announcing the Snow Angels program, things like that. But it really has evolved, and the media has evolved. And, now, like you said, you're having to be innovative. You're having to kind of innovate in order to fill the perception gap too, that's in people's minds. And I actually want to go back to what you said. So when you were talking about, it was your opportunity to actually be in on the inside and understand what was going on in City Hall and city government. Let's do a little game, like perception versus reality. Okay. So I don't have any questions prepared for this, but let's just talk about it. So what did you, broadly speaking, what did you perceive? What did you think the show was like before coming in on the inside?
I tell people this all the time. When I started, I expected it to be like any workplace. There would be some really good people, there would be some bad people, and then there would be a lot of people in the middle, all along the curve. Because that's what everywhere is like. But once I got in there, and I tell people, rest easy when you go to sleep, because it's way better than I ever imagined. And I think there's a reason why. You don't become a first responder unless you mean it, unless you are willing to put your life down for a stranger, for the city that you work for. And that goes for all of the departments that I represent. So it's not a normal workplace. You are getting the best of the best, people who are incredibly selfless and literally run towards the crisis while everyone else is running away. And it was so much better, the level of people that I found myself surrounded by in public safety, that not only am I still here 3 years later, when I never expected to be here for 3 years, but I figured if I'm going to represent first responders, I might as well become one. Because I'm so impressed by these people, I actually became EMT certified, just so that when there is something, if I'm going to represent these people, I'm going to be a first responder too. That's how much these people have affected me, and how impressed I am by these people. There are some people that I wish would move on, but they are such a small number. The vast majority of the people that I work for, I just, it's an honor to represent them. So it's way better than I thought. My perception coming in was that it was going to be like any other workplace. And what I found out quickly was it's not. You don't, as a journalist, I always thought that being a journalist was a calling, and it is. And I still feel like I am a journalist at heart, and someday I want to get back into it because I miss it desperately. But I also recognize that it takes something different to become a first responder, and you see it in just like the average person is great, and that's what I learned in representing these people.
That's awesome, Chris. Hey, I love hearing that, because it, today there's a lot of malcontent surrounding, in particular, police officers, and the whole defund the police movement. And I remember I ran out of gas. Okay, by the way, and in my entire lifespan, I've run out of gas twice, and that was in the past 6 months.
Yeah.
If you want to know how crazy my life's been, that's like a good data point. But anyhow, it was in the summer, and I was kind of in a place where it wasn't safe, and I had my kids in the car, so I had to call the police. I wasn't in the city; I was outside the city. Nonetheless, the first responders came, and they were 2 police officers. I think it was McCandless Township, and they're really nice, and understood that I was driving at the time a Chrysler Pacifica. It's a van and it has all the technology in it. Well, guess what? When it shuts off, because of no gas, you can't actually put it into neutral. By the way, I got rid of it after that because I realized the tech was too advanced and it actually wasn't thought through and really wasn't safe. But nonetheless, while they were helping me, single mom with like young kids, there were people yelling at them, calling them pigs. And I could see the fear that they had, that they were on a highway near me with cars driving fast past them, people screaming profanities at them. And it was only like 2 or 3 people, but still, I felt really bad. Right. I felt bad. And I understand the movement has its, roots for reasons that are, about social justice and are, there's some truth to that. But it's a really hard time to be a police officer right now. What's your perspective on what your police department is going through, and how do we get through this?
How do we get through this? By showing up to work every day.
Let me pause you. So what we see on TV, right, or perhaps reading the paper is, people don't like police, defund the police. But when you're out there in the communities, when you're out there in Homewood, when you're out there in Hill District, when you're out there in Carrick, are people telling the police to go home? Is that actually happening?
Sure, but there's also a lot of support out there. So I think that there is a very vocal group, that they're the most vocal, who is critical, and I think a lot of police officers totally get it. I mean, what happened in Minneapolis? I don't know a police officer who supports that, or who hasn't been appalled by what happened. I think the Pittsburgh police, so I'm going to start by saying the Academy for Pittsburgh Police, there are requirements in terms of training for certification for police officers. There are requirements statewide. Pittsburgh goes so far and beyond what is required and adds layer upon layer of different training aspects because Pittsburgh wants to produce the best police in the country. So there's implicit bias training. There's de-escalation training. There's a great program called Inside Out, that I had the chance to witness in person, where they bring recruits to a prison, and they go in and they have one-on-one. So if there's a group of 25 recruits, they will bring a group of 25 inmates. And they will sit in a circle, and they have all these, and it's not just a one-time; it's weeks-long process.
That's amazing.
And it's incredible, and it gives the officers a different perspective, and it teaches them that reasons why people might end up committing crimes and in prison, and it allows them to take a different look at the community that they're serving. And when you pull someone over, instead of just issuing the citation, maybe start a conversation and try to unpack and figure out what led you to this point. Why did this happen?
Favorite quote: "Be curious, not judgmental. Ask the questions first."
Yeah. Yep. I believe 100% in this police department and the steps that for years they've been making to become more progressive, to become better at building bridges with all members of our community. On the other hand, I 100% understand and agree with peaceful protesters who took to the street and are demanding change. If you don't think the police reform is coming, you're wrong. It is coming, and we should embrace it. And I think that Pittsburgh does embrace it. Pittsburgh is, all these reforms that have been called for in other cities, Pittsburgh has already done the majority of the things. what is it that,
I mean, is there a point where you reform too far, right? Is there a point where you've done these reforms and now police have lost their ability to police, or police feel unsafe? So what's next on the pipeline?
I'm not sure I can answer that question. I think that's for someone way smarter than me. I just think that we are on a path. There's a national conversation that's starting now and is going to continue for years. And we're going to reimagine police work in this country. And I think that a lot of police welcome it. Police shouldn't necessarily be going out on 302 calls. We should have more mental health work out in the field. The problem is police have become the group where whenever there's a problem, you call police and ask them to fix it. And that's the mentality of police, is they never say no. So even if it's not necessarily what they're trained to do, police handle everything so that the rest of us don't have to. They, on a daily basis, see the craziest that we have to offer in society. It was strange for me because during the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic, and before what happened in Minneapolis and the civil unrest that followed, the biggest problem for this police department was that they were too popular. With the pandemic and everyone being locked down and in their homes, there was just constant requests for parades. My son is turning 5 and it's his birthday and he loves police. Can you do a parade past? That was the biggest problem, was there were too many requests for parades for police to go to people's houses. And it was stretching. We couldn't handle all of the requests. Police were too popular, and then overnight it changed. And I think people understand why, but they just continue going to work and hope that they can have a voice as we move forward and reimagine police. And it's the nature of the business. One day you're too popular, and the next day you're the evilest organization in the world.
It's just scary to me as I sit on the sidelines and just watch it, not in it like you're in it, and I see the voices are voices of two extremes: far right, far left, just like in Mayor Peduto's recent Twitter quote. It's just all too extreme. And if I say, there's a feeling, and you don't have to comment, but there's a feeling among, in America right now, and I have it, where if I tell a certain person or certain people, or maybe on my Facebook feed, that, I support our police, now I'm racist. And it's like, can't you support police reform and be absolutely against what happened in Minneapolis or racial profiling, and also support the police? It's like, we've gone so far from just reasonability. And that's very frustrating. I'm sure it frustrates you to see it as well.
Yeah. And so, you mentioned social media. There came a point where, for a while we felt like we had to pull back and kind of just not post anything, because the reaction was just so overwhelmingly negative to anything that we posted.
Anything you do, anything you say. Yeah. But then is that okay? Then what about the people in the middle that want the information? Then we're isolated. We're bullied.
Bullied. Eventually, I just came to the decision, and I just told everyone in my office, don't read the comments. Just, we have a responsibility to inform and to get word out. And if we post something and the responses are all vulgar and some of the violent, so be it. Just don't pay attention. We know who these people are that we represent, and we're proud to represent them. Right. And we also know that reform is coming, and we welcome it. And so we just try not to let outside forces change who we are. We're going to continue being a progressive police department. We're going to continue trying to build relationships with the community. And as a PIO office, we're going to continue trying to tell the whole story, even if we get shouted down from time to time.
Good for you. I mean, that's leadership. That's leadership. And then if you don't, and then the thing, if you stop communicating and you don't say anything, there's that good old information vacuum. Someone else is going to fill it, right? So That's a communications tip I tell. Oftentimes crisis communications clients, they're afraid of criticism, right? They know, let's say the client knows that whatever they say, they're going to get some dissenters. So they're like, screw this. I'm not going to say anything. Worst thing you can do, as you know, as a former journalist, worst thing you can do. You have to just like, you have to realize the world's not fair. Not everyone's gonna like what you say, but you have a story to tell. And if you don't tell it, somebody else is gonna tell it for you.
And police, I think right now have been for many months now in a position of no matter what they do, they're wrong. And an example that I bring up was there was one protest in the Strip District where there was one person who was live streaming it and spent hours seeking out police and yelling at them and saying, "You're not welcome here. Keep in mind, the reason why police attend these, especially the cycle units, is to close down roads around the protesters to keep them safe. We saw it in Charlottesville. We saw it during the Rosfeld trial on the North Shore. There are people who will just drive through crowds of people. And police are there to make sure that that doesn't happen. Police are there to protect them. So I just want to make that point first.
Point. Yep.
But this person spends hours yelling at police and telling them to leave and you're not welcome here. And then the person finds out that one of their bike marshals had been assaulted by a motorist who didn't like the fact that he couldn't ride down the street. And instantly, the person who for 2 hours has been yelling at police and telling them to leave changed instantly. And it's all on Facebook Live and starts looking for police to yell at them to do their jobs. Why aren't you protecting us? Do your jobs. And it was like that. And I just watched that and I said, no, you can't win. I mean, police for 2 hours were getting yelled at for being there. And then for 2 hours after, were yelled at for not protecting. It just didn't.
Well, I think that says everything about some of the people who are protesting.
Well, and I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. The vast majority of people were wonderful. I mean, we're great. And if I wasn't doing this job and working during those protests, I probably would have been with them. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid to say it. Black lives do matter. And these protests had to happen and they were meaningful, peaceful ones, I should say. But I think, and there was a lot of emotion driving them. And I think now that as we begin this national conversation, my hope is that the emotion can remain, but that we become more thoughtful and methodical in how if we're going to talk about defunding or reimagining, okay, but let's make sure that we get it right. Let's make sure that the decisions that we make now are decisions that are going to be in place for generations to come. We don't want to be doing this again in 5 years.
Right. Right. And I think we also have to remember that there's still a lot of crime in the city and throughout all cities in America, but there's still a lot of crime and like violent crime, and people, whenever there's violent crime, you want a police officer there right away. You don't want to wait. And when I was press secretary, I remember how every single council person, including Bill Peduto, wanted more police officers, pushing to get police officers added to the budget, right? And I remember we went up, I don't know why I know this number, but we went from like 900 to 910 or something. That's all we could afford to do. And it was a big to-do. It was a big press release and probably a press conference too. And, all neighborhoods, they wanted their beat cops back. They wanted their neighborhood beat cops back. And, my fear is if cities go too far in removing that presence, is there going to be, and if crime goes up, if violent crime goes up, is there going to be a shift the other way? And then we're going back to square one. Remains to be seen.
Yeah, when we make cuts to police departments, what are the first things that go? It's the stuff that everyone likes, the community outreach. I know in DC, I was in DC for the inauguration, working with Metropolitan Police.
Oh, were you? Just now?
They had to make, yeah, last week.
Oh, tell us about that.
Really quickly though.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
The first thing that they had to make some cuts because council immediately cut some of their budget. So what was the first thing that went? It was their mounted unit, and that's the type of stuff that people want from their police departments, because mounted units, everyone likes horses, and they're part of community outreach. To DC, there's an organization called the Major City Chiefs Association, which is, as it sounds, the police chiefs from all the major cities in the U.S. And they have monthly conference calls, and we as PIOs also have monthly conference calls. And they just figured it would be a good time to get some of the better storytellers in the country, PIO storytellers, together to sort of together in one place for a few days to come up with a plan to better tell the story of police. So they asked police from Pittsburgh, Albuquerque, Kansas City, and Mountain View, California to go out because it was a perfect opportunity to meet with thousands of police officers who were in the city from all around the country. And so we just went around and talked to people and said, why did you become a police officer? And we're just trying to tell the story a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, I guess one of the problems I would imagine many police officers have is the problem of who speaks for me, who's representing me, and who's my voice. You have union officials that could be a voice, but I think it's tougher for any leader to really stick up for police right now. It's tough because you're getting pummeled. You're the cancel culture. You might be impacted. Be careful what you say. Be very careful with your words. But I think what you said is awesome. Black lives do matter, right? Absolutely. I would be protesting them again, but also our police are awesome. Most of our police are awesome. And the two can coexist. Any interesting stories from the inauguration in talking with police officers? Any ahas that you pulled away from that?
I think my favorite moment, I did so many interviews with so many police officers from different departments, but my favorite moment was there was an officer named Stephen Benson for Metropolitan Police Department who was sort of assigned to the PIOs to drive us wherever we needed to go to and from the hotel, because the city was so locked down. We couldn't.
You had a private driver.
There were so many checkpoints in the city that we needed a marked unit to drive us back and forth from the hotel. But we got to know him really well, and he's a Black man from Washington D.C. who is now a police officer there. And I spoke to him. And I asked him, I was like, we're starting this process of reimagining police. Like, what do you think about that? And what do you think that the public maybe doesn't realize about police and what they're thinking about the process of reimagining police? And his response to me was wonderful. And he said, we're talking about reimagining police. Well, why do you think I joined police? I grew up a Black man in America. I had those experiences where I felt like I was harassed by police or unfairly targeted by police. I joined police because I want to reimagine police. That's why all of us joined, because we're thinking about how to reimagine police every single day. So now this is great. The process is now going to include everyone. It's not just me. It's not just me, the Black man who joined the police department because he wanted to make change. Now everyone's on board. Now let's all get together and let's reimagine police. So just the idea that it's not just a vocal group of protesters who are talking about reimagining police. It's the police themselves who are like, yes, this is why I joined. I think that we can do things better, and let's figure out a way to do it. So
love it. That's awesome.
It is absolutely time to embrace and reimagine the role of police work in a way that works for everyone. And I think that that's the philosophy that everyone's going to have moving forward.
I love it. How is the Pittsburgh Police Union? And truly, I have not been following much police news closely. Apologize. I've been kind of busy. Been
Uh,
kind of busy here. But how's the police union responding to reform? What are they for? What are they against? Has it been a collaborative process? Because that's always the problem. I mean, let's face it, everybody wants things to be better. I think most people know that police can be reimagined in a way that's positive for everyone. But it's not easy to make change happen always, especially long-standing institutional change. And a lot of times it's some unions get in the way. How has it been?
I can tell you with all honesty, I don't know. I do not represent the
We'll
union.
get Wendell on next week. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to get that into the details, but I was curious because that's part of the communications puzzle too. I mean,
Right. But in all seriousness, I represent the departments, but I do not represent their unions. Their unions, I have no involvement with them. We don't communicate, so I can't speak for the unions in any way.
Right. Okay. All right. A couple more things I wanted to ask you. So, and then I know I only have an hour of your time, so we're coming up to that hour. So in 2018, you took this role, and the media had already been going through changes then, right? Local media was cut significantly, had been being cut, shifts were made. But in the past year, since we've been in this pandemic, any insights into how you've seen the media further change? Has the media, and I'm not trying to lead you into this, but are you seeing an increased polarization in coverage in local media?
I'm glad that you brought this around because we can talk more about Sandy Tolliver. I mean, Sandy to me is the sort of the line. She represents what journalism used to be, which was thoughtfulness and thoroughness and attention to detail. She left the Trib. I believe she's working for the Hill now, so she's still in journalism, which is.
And Sandy was a consultant with Premo for a number of years as well, and she missed being a journalist, but we still work together. I love Sandy.
I was the luckiest reporter at the Trib because she was my editor from day one, and even as she was promoted and no longer had reporters below her, she kept me. So she got promoted and left all of the reporters that she used to oversee, but kept me. I think probably because I was a problem child and nobody else wanted to deal with me. But that's what we're missing now. And newsrooms have been cut back. There's so much institutional knowledge that is no longer in the game. I look at the Trib, and you look at the leaders there with Sandy Tolliver, Bob Fryer, Frank Craig, Jim Cuddy. That's a ton of institutional knowledge, and they're all out of the local market. They're no longer here. And so newsrooms are suffering as a result. We don't have enough Sandy Tollivers in news anymore. And I'm going
to title this episode that. This is going to be the title of this episode. Where is Sandy? We need more Sandys. Something I've noticed is, and to be honest, we are more national in scope now, and we don't do as much like local media placement in the Pittsburgh market, but we still do it. And so when I have done it in the past year, I've noticed that there's less like chutzpah from editors on down to like get the story, like to like really, and I mean, I'm pretty, when I have a job to do, I do my best to get it done. If I need to place a story, I do my best to get it done. But I'm in a position now where I don't take on clients if it's not a really good story. I don't, because then I won't be successful. So I can say no. I say that because it's hard to get it's hard to get that passion from many in the local media. It still exists. But I can tell you recently when I was helping a university with a crisis that involved, had many, what's the word I'm looking for? The crisis was overshadowed by the BLM movement. And when we tried to correct the record and help get the story out, it was late doing that, but the story was still out there and still being reported on. So we do, the three things you have to do, give access to information. If you want to correct a story or tell the story, if it hasn't been told, you have to give a reporter access to the information, right? You have to do that. And sometimes that involves me telling my client, and most of the time they're lawyers, like, we have to do this. Sorry, lawyer, we're doing it. And then we fight with the lawyer, and then he finally, it works. And then providing somebody, so access to the information, and then providing somebody to talk about that information. So it's not as much as where you can just say, here, read this and write on it. Reporters need to have somebody that they can ask questions to, and they need a voice and sometimes, face. And what's the third thing? So access to information, having somebody to speak on it. And, the third thing is it really has to be like new information, right? Newsworthy, salient. So even when we would do those three things, I found that it was too controversial for the reporters to touch. They didn't want to do it. And that was disheartening for me. But it reminded me of the importance of having, it doesn't matter if you're a PIO department, if you're a nonprofit, if you're in a school, you have to have your own media. You have to treat yourself as your own media organization and be ready to get information out quickly to your stakeholders. And most people still don't do that. And most organizations still don't think that they should do that. And a lot of them are afraid to do that, right? Well, I can control this. The power can be in my hands. Well, analysis paralysis, right?
I remember in 2012, and this was another Sandy Tolliver idea. She sent me to all of the political battleground states before the presidential election, Obama and Mitt Romney. Mm-hmm. And so I traveled to North Carolina, New Hampshire, Virginia, Florida, Iowa, Wisconsin, all of the battleground states. I went there to report stories in advance of the presidential election. And after each story would publish, I would get hate mail from Democrats and Republicans. And that was how I knew I was doing my job right, because everyone was pissed at me. And I feel like sometimes now nobody's willing to do anything controversial. They're just going to write what they know what the narrative is, and they're just going to stick to that, even if they see something different.
That's so dangerous. It scares me.
And it doesn't take, it takes zero courage. And if you're going to be a journalist, you need to, every act that you do as a journalist needs to have courage behind it. And I feel like that's kind of lacking. And a lot of people sort of, use the reporter's notebook in the back pocket as, I'm a reporter, therefore it reminds me of a conversation I had with a local reporter. We had coffee one time because we were having issues with each other.
Who was it? Tell me later. No. What news outlet? Like print, radio, TV?
Okay. I don't want to. Oh, we'll talk offline on that. But and the point that this reporter made to me was this garbage that every cop is a hero. I don't buy it. And let's start there. It's not true that, like, just because you wear a badge doesn't make you a hero. And I said, okay, that's fine. I might argue that, but I'll grant that point. If you're willing to grant that just because you put one of these in your back pocket doesn't mean you're doing good work. There are good journalists and there are bad journalists. And I do want to stress that even though we're sort of presenting a pretty pessimistic view of the local media market, there are a ton of really good reporters in the city. And there are a lot of journalists who are still doing, you don't seem like you believe me there.
No. I think, here's what I think. I think that it's more editor leadership driven than ever before. Okay. And in most outlets. So depending on if they're Sandy Tolliver or not, the person who's going to get a particular beat that might be really important is going to have the same viewpoints as that editor. Is going to follow the narrative. Follow the narrative, kid, and you know what? You'll rise.
See, I think that the real root of the problem with local journalism is at the editor level. I think that the editors who were there for years and years have all been either forced to retire or left of their own volition. And what you have now are people who shouldn't be editors and have no institutional knowledge. I think that the problem with where local media is coming up short starts at the top with ownership and management, and that there are still out there working beats reporters who are trying and are good and are talented, but they have no support from above. That's where I think the problem is.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good way to put it. How do we change it? What do we do? I mean, we're not going to change it, but like, how does change? This is the year of change. We're going to change this. We're going to change that. We're going to, right? How do we begin? I think the first step to changing something is to say there's a problem, right? But how? I mean, how do we get our outlets, and it's not even just local, just to be more focused on telling both sides and more curious and less judgmental? I don't know how.
I don't know how either. I'm no longer a journalist because there's really no place for me locally anymore. I could have left Pittsburgh, and I decided not to. But the job that I did as a reporter was to be methodical, take time to tell the story, make sure that I got it right. I didn't care about being first. I cared about being right. And I did deep dives and stuff that takes time. And that position doesn't exist anymore locally. And that's our fault as news consumers. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's your fault and it's my fault as news consumers. We stopped supporting. If local consumers would support local news, then there wouldn't have been all of these cutbacks. And again, to your point earlier, it's probably social media. There's a number of factors, but the bottom line is we stopped supporting local news. So, I
mean, I have my subscriptions that I pay for. I'm not going to say there's certain ones I won't give to for a reason. Right?
Me too. Absolutely.
For a reason, but.
And it's local. My subscriptions are national because I'm with everything that's happening at certain news media, and I'm not going to call anyone out by name, but we're all aware of what's happening at certain local outlets, and I can't give them money until they fix what's happening there. So I share response.
I mean, it's we're like, if our country is a living organism, the cells are sick, right? And I think our country has a lot of work to do on just decorum, reasonability, niceness, kindness, all of that. And we've gotten so far-sighted, and the fourth tenet of democracy, right? Our news media, ideologues are running it, not actual journalists, and that's the problem. Yeah.
We can't even, as a country, agree on what's a fact. So it's not just how do you say.
It's crazy. And I'm telling you that, there's national reporters who I used to have a lot of respect for, who are so clearly have such a clear bias, such a clear agenda that I've watched. I mean, it could be, on, CBS Sunday morning, like shows that I watch all the time, Meet the Press, those kinds of shows, where I'm so frustrated because I'm watching these journalists act like people with agendas, not journalists. And then I don't trust what I'm watching anymore. I don't trust it. But anyways, well, we'll follow this closely, and in the meantime, we'll just keep trying to control what we can't control, which is our own networks, our own social networks. I want to thank you for your time. I could talk to you for forever. You have so many good insights, and you are doing an amazing job. So when you do take the leap, it better be as an editor or a publisher for a local news organization. And then I will be certain to subscribe and tell all of my friends to subscribe as well.
Yeah, I'm loving my time as PIO, but again, I'm a journalist. I was born to be a journalist, and I eventually would like to get back in.
You'll be back. I know you're gonna be back. And this is gonna make you so much better. You're gonna be like
I feel like it's giving me a different perspective. I don't know if you ever read A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a part in there where John Irving writes that every American should be forced to live outside of the country for 2 years, just so that you get the chance to watch how others perceive you and how you behave when you're not there. It gives you a new appreciation for what America is and what it means to. I feel like I've gotten that opportunity by stepping away from journalism and working on this side for 3 years. I'm now looking back in and going, that's what needs to be fixed, and that's what needs to be fixed, and that shouldn't be like that. And when I get back in, if I get back in, then I'll be better prepared because of my experience here. So we'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and best of luck dealing with what will certainly be a difficult year for public safety departments, and hoping that things calm down and that protests are peaceful, that the mayor isn't attacked by anyone, right? And that there's a lot of respect. So, yeah. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was fun.